LeBaron Filan from Alabama and Drake Powell from North Carolina, both saying that those guys are all in on the draft for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is I think that both those guys could have made more money coming back to school than they will make in their first year as NBA players, right? I don't think either, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't think either are locked first round picks. And I think both of them, specifically Filan, had the potential to end up being minimum all league, potentially like borderline all American kind of guys if they had come back for their sophomore season. So Isaac, I'll start with you. What is the bigger loss here? Is it Alabama losing LeBaron Filan? Is it North Carolina losing Drake Powell?
Yeah, I think it's Carolina losing Drake Powell just because I felt like on paper they had a chance to have a much improved defense with Henry Visar at the rim, who I think is an elite defender, and then you throw in Drake Powell at the wing, who I think is a terrific defender, and then you throw Seth Trimble at the point of attack. Like I was kind of talking myself into Carolina's defense being much improved because they have at all three levels like somebody who I regarded as a pretty elite defender, maybe one of the best in their respective positions, and so to not have him. And now you lose Andrei Stojakovic to Illinois. It's like Carolina has a huge hole at the three. Like, are you playing Jonathan Powell at the three, the transfer out of West Virginia? Like, what can you get right now in the market? Like, for me, they scream like somebody who could theoretically get in the Darian Williams sweepstakes, maybe RJ Lewis if he comes back, or Jameer Watkins, something like that would make sense. But like, they have a huge hole right there. And I think Alabama with the Filan conversation. They have a lot of depth. Like they have Aiden Holloway, like they have Houston Millett coming back. They've gone into the portal. They got Jalil Bethia, who is a big bounce back candidate, the former 5-star who kind of had a disappointing freshman season. So I think it makes sense for Filan to start testing the waters as an NBA guy. Like, what's he going to do? Like, shoot it 3% better from 3-point range and suddenly become a top 20 pick? Like, I think we're going to have a lot of the same questions in a year if he had come back to school. But the Powell one is a big loss. Now, granted, he helped himself out a lot this week. That 43-inch vertical, like he's got some bunnies on him. And he said to me, like, or I think it was Kristen Peak actually, who he was talking to. He was like, teams have brought up the Amen Thompson type of archetype with him. So if that name gets thrown around with you athletically, that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit.
Yeah, Goodman.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is Hubert Davis has pressure on him this year. It's not like Nate Oates has any pressure on him, right? Like they're good enough. They're good enough. As Isaac said, they've got enough other guards. Are they as explosive? Maybe as Filan, maybe not. But, Aiden Holloway's a seasoned guard, and right, so we know can shoot the hell out of it. You bring in Bethea, who's a wild card, because we all saw him a couple summers ago, and he was an AAU player, and he was an AAU player at Miami last year, but that was a disaster. What can Nate Oates get out of Bethea? Because he is super talented. So that's a guy that to me is like an X factor for them. They got Houston Millett coming off the bench who can shoot the ball. So they've got enough guards where to me, it just scares me, for Carolina, for Hubert Davis, the pressure that he's going to be on. Now, he got some bigs, so that certainly helps. Visar is going to help. I don't know how good Jaren Stevenson will be coming back home. Kyan Evans, paid a lot of money for him. That's a lot of pressure for him as well. I just think I have more confidence in Nate Oates and Alabama and enough perimeter guys that he could withstand the hit, where I don't know if Carolina can withstand the same hit losing Drake Powell.
Yeah, I think Carolina's in a really bad spot right now. I don't think that they did anywhere near enough. You look at some of the guys, especially at the point guard spot, that were available in the portal this year, and none of them ended up at UNC. They didn't get Donovan Dent. They didn't get Silas Demery. They didn't get a lot of these guys that have the potential to be all-league, high-major players. They ended up with Kyan Evans. And all due respect to Kyan Evans, good player at Colorado State last year, but if you're North Carolina and you're trying to replace RJ Davis and you have Ellie Cadeau leave and you end up with a guy that was the third best player on Colorado State last year to be the point guard for a North Carolina basketball program, that to me is not the best sign. They didn't bring in a high major transfer that averaged double figures last year. Drake Powell leaves another gap where now you have, the biggest problem they had last year was they had to basically play three guards that were all 6'2" or smaller. Right now, their starting lineup, what is it? Kyan Evans, Jaden Young, who's 6'4", and Seth Trimble at the three again, right? Like if I'm Hubert Davis, I am making it a very clear point to Jim Tanner and the GM that's running that program, and everybody with the collectives and everybody with they have to go get more. Whether it's
okay,
Boogie Flan.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
Can I push back on that a little bit? You mentioned Jim Tanner, who they hired, paid a lot of money to as a general manager this year. He was an NBA agent. He's older. He's been in the NBA business for a while. But no disrespect to Jim Tanner. I don't even know the guy well. But what I do know is I don't think he was ultra plugged in to the college game. And right now, the salaries and what you're paying and who you got to know at that level. To me, that is not the type of guy I would hire to be a college general manager right now. I'm hiring somebody that's in the know, that's in the trenches, that can get information from me, that knows exactly what's going on. I don't know how many of those guys there are, but I don't know if Jim Tanner was the right guy, especially for this program. And I've heard Jim Tanner is an exceptional human being, which fits in with the rest of the staff. What they need, and I've said this before, is an MFer. That's what they need at Carolina on that staff.
Yeah, and I'll leave it up to you on this one, Trotter, to kind of to wrap it up. But Caleb Wilson's a guy that is very highly regarded as a freshman, right? I think that you need another kind of big wing next to him in an ideal situation, whether it was a Drake Powell, maybe a Darian Williams. I'm not sure you could play him next to Jaron Stevenson and Henry Visar and have that be the kind of team that you want a North Carolina team to be. Isaiah Dennis and Derek Dixon are both good pieces. I think that they are multi-year players coming into the program, guys that could be really, really good as maybe sophomores, more likely as juniors. I don't know if this is a tournament team right now with North Carolina. That's where I'm at with this. I think that they're going to have a lot of the same issues this season that they had last year. And I think they need to they need to make a splash. You mentioned RJ Lewis, you mentioned Jameer Watkins, you mentioned Darian Williams, I mentioned Boogie Flan. They got to get at least one of those guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Jameer Watkins would make a little bit of sense for them too. It's just that big wing defender, kind of like what I'm going into. Hey, they need to score in transition a little bit more. He's going to play really fast. Watkins is one of the elite transition scorers last year. But they also have some PR stuff to work through too, because yesterday, Drake Powell, admitted that he didn't feel like he was going to get the development that he thought at Carolina. He didn't get the role that he wanted. He was a little bit frustrated, and he's really close with Hubert Davis. So I think he was trying to pick his words properly with that, because there's a lot of respect there. Obviously, the families are really close with Hubert Davis, but it is what it is. And I think that they're going to have to fight that in the transfer portal. When Harrison Ingram did transfer there and got a little bit better, but did RJ Davis's stock get tremendously better by sticking around at Carolina? That's a concern. How are you going to develop these wings? And I talked to Jameer Watkins yesterday. He goes, I want to go to a team that can get to the tournament. I want to be in in a big game thing. And I think Carolina would make sense for that. I think he would make sense from an X's and O's perspective, even if the jumper isn't necessarily something you really love, and they definitely need shooting. But for the most part, they still have to fight. Hey, we can actually get you better and actually improve your stock, which all these NBA draft stay or go guys are repeating ad nauseum these days.